Good morning and welcome to Pharma's DNA. DNA is the building blocks of all life on this planet. Pharma's DNA, this podcast, is your building block giving you a complete understanding of all aspects of the pharmaceutical outsourcing industry. This is your host, Kirsty Stedman, and today we are speaking with Klaus Hellmann at Klifovet about the latest news in the development of products for both pet animals as well as food-producing animals. For our audience who may not be familiar with Klaus Hellmann and Klifovet, Klaus is the founder and CEO of Klifovet AG. With 30 years of experience in the animal health industry, Klaus is the specialist in the development of safety and efficacy of all kinds of animal health products, biologicals and non-biologicals. In 1997, after gathering expertise in the industry with Pfizer Animal Health, now Zoetis, Klaus founded Klifovet as a CRO specialised on the conduct of field studies in both pets and food-producing animals in Europe. The company grew rapidly within the industry, its reach and reputation. Klifovet was honoured with the Animal Farm Award as the best CRO service provider to the animal health industry in 2006, 2015 and again in 2019. While initially services were limited to clinical trials, Klifovet now also offers regulatory affairs, pharmacovigilance, quality management, data management including electronic data capture and GMP manufacturing of products. With all these services, Klifovet offers now the complete scope of services required to develop a new animal health product, from research to marketing, authorization and beyond. Welcome, Klaus.
Welcome, Christy.
It's wonderful to have you with us. If we start a bit about your background, whereabouts in Germany did you grow up?
Well, I grew up in the outskirts of a medium-sized city in the northwest of Germany called Osnabrück, near the center of animal production in Germany.
So what drew you to the animal health industry?
Well, in fact, my father trained me about animals, both for caring for dogs as well as hunting wild animals, but also caring for them. Because in Germany, hunting has more to do with animal care than shooting them. So this is what brought me in contact with farmers and their problems in the first place.
What inspires, motivates you in this specialized field and to create Klifovet?
As I just mentioned, as a pet owner and hunter, I was faced with the health of animals from an early stage and age and developed a heavy interest. Thus, I decided to study veterinary medicine at the Veterinary University in Hanover in the 80s. And after working in science and clinical practice, I decided to move into the animal health industry. And I found it to be very enjoyable. I was responsible for technical marketing support, but also for aspects of manufacturing, pharmacovigilance, and most important, clinical development of new products. On top, the early 90s was a time of the German reunification. Very exciting to experience firsthand the challenges of the farmers in the new member states, adapting to new situations and finding ways to solve problems under different conditions. After a couple of years in which I realized more about my skills in these areas, I moved to Munich and founded Klifovet in 1997, which has now become one of the leading consultancies for the development of animal health products.
What inspires and motivates you in this specialized field and to create Klifovet?
Well, I got and still get my daily dose of motivation from my interest in anything new and putting such ideas into real life. With a pragmatic approach, problems are there to be solved, and I've always had a hands-on mentality. I started with Pfizer Animal Health, as indicated earlier, but a large corporate was limiting my ideas and views. Therefore, coming from a self-employed family of several generations, I preferred to look into the options of working self-employed or as an entrepreneur. Leaving the large corporate made them miss me. A few years after I moved to Munich and stopped working for them, eventually they missed me so much that they called me and asked me to work for them again. And that's how it all started. I did not go back to them, but accepted their order as a self-employed. As this grew fast, requiring several employees, whereupon I created Klifovet.
That's awesome. So you mentioned you attained various qualifications. With all those years of study and hard work, would you like to summarize them for our listeners?
Sure, Kirsty. After starting my own business, I certified as a quality manager and auditor by the German Organization of Quality in 2002. In 2005, I qualified as an expert for veterinary pharmacology and toxicology with the European College of Veterinary Pharmacology and Toxicology. And this was after had been accepted as an expert in Germany already in 1995 for this topic. And by that, Klifovet was also accepted as an organization for continuous education for veterinarians by the relevant German veterinary chamber. Since 2001, we have hosted various internationally recognized conferences here in Munich. And later, I myself was also accepted as qualified person for manufacturing of vaccines and for pharmacovigilance. All these topics are related to the development and maintenance of animal health products, which has included various participatory countries and continents. Our wide offers of services require different kind of qualifications, so we built them up, and I was normally heading that. More qualifications, more work, more offers.
That's amazing. It's so important and vital to have an array of perspectives and cultural knowledge embedded in research and relations. This, I am sure, would have enriched your work and ethos at Klifovet.
Well, certainly. My mission is to assure the availability of safe and effective products for the treatment and prevention and care of animals, and make sure that animals also benefit from the innovations generated by us humans. So Klifovet's mission has changed over the last decades, but has always included to enable and enhance the availability of high quality, safe and efficacious medicines for the health and well-being of animals.
So practically, how do you go about reaching these standards? What is the company's structure? Which departments currently exist at Klifovet and why?
Well, just to give you some background, few know, for example, that the approval of process for animal medicines does not differ too much from human medicines. Thanks to COVID-19, a broad majority of the population have gathered some knowledge on the development of human medicines by now. For animal health products, primarily for food-producing animals, the consumer safety is very important, especially as people are finally eating these products. This has to be studied in detail to assure that the food produced from treated animals does not present a risk to the consumer. And that's quite different to what is expected for a human medicine. Pet products generally follow the pathway of human medicines. The variety of different animal species creates further challenges as the metabolism of drugs in different animals varies. For each animal species and each indication claimed, studies must be conducted to show the safety and efficacy for such products. To be able to meet the required quality and standards, we do invest in well-qualified teams supported by continuous education. Where required, we collaborate with some of the top specialists in the industry based on our extended global network. All this brings us to our own company structure that helps us to keep the standards. Beyond the typical administrative departments, all our operations are integrated into a rigid quality management system certified to ISO 9001. Our operational units are dedicated to, first of all, the quality of such products. Here we are manufacturing veterinary medicine products to good manufacturing practices, the most stringent requirements for veterinary medicines worldwide, but also any other product designed for the use in animals. Secondly, we provide regulatory affairs services defining the appropriate strategy, writing and compiling dossiers, and negotiating with the competent authorities. In Europe, these are most of the times the European Food Safety Agency or the European Medicines Agency. Thirdly, pharmacovigilance, meaning the surveillance of the safety of the products after the granting of the marketing authorization. Fourth, we are managing and conduct preclinical and clinical safety and efficacy studies, which are then necessary to prove the safety and efficacy towards the competent authorities and the public. Fifth, we also offer data management, assuring the full traceability of the collected data, either paper-based or electronically these days. Sixth, at the end, we also have to analyze the data. That means statistics, assuring the correct setup, planning phase, as well as the analysis of the study data at the end. And finally, as already I started with, the quality management, meaning that the services, tests, and studies are conducted to what we call good practices, GXP, assuring that they generate correct, trustful, and meaningful results. Obviously, we try to meet the objectives of our customers, usually finally being to meet the expectations of the competent authorities who then grant the marketing authorization based on the data that we have generated. And that makes us proud if that works.
Definitely. That's amazing. It's such a comprehensive service. I can see how you've managed to establish such an excellent reputation and an award-winning service. Now, Klaus, can you tell me a bit about product development process, please, and how the development has evolved over the last 20 years?
Yes, pleasure. Traditionally, the product development of animal health products was nearly exclusively done by the large pharma companies, who were mainly active to develop human health products, like Novartis, Bayer, Upjohn, Pfizer. All of them have separated their animal health businesses or sold it nowadays. Very few human health companies are still active in animal health, like Boehringer Ingelheim and Merck. In the last 10 years, we see a growing number of startup companies with a focus to develop new animal health products. Most of them have a clear exit strategy. And for the last few years, we see an increasing number of exits with complete companies being sold. Examples are Aratana Therapeutics and Preftic Microbia from Canada and Globe Stem Cell Technology from Belgium. Others just sold individual products after obtaining the marketing authorization. An example being Miratas, a topical solution to stimulate the appetite of cats with chronic renal failure. At the same time, we have an increasing number of animal health companies being listed on the stock exchange, mostly at Nasdaq in New York, but also some in London, Paris, Peking, or Tokyo. The animal health business is getting more professional, indicated by the increased interest of these investors. And this is certainly deserved. Although much smaller than the human health business, animal health has seen continuous growth rates of 5 to 10% since the early 80s. Thus, for 40 years now, we have seen a huge growth in this market. It is assumed that there are now more than 250 startups worldwide, which will certainly further drive innovation in the space of animal health. KCC startups usually focus on novel therapies, like products based on stem cells, phages, therapeutic peptides, and proteins. Furthermore, genetically modified organisms or genes introduce new technologies to the animal health space, like messenger RNA or DNA vaccines, monoclonal antibodies, or similar new technologies. And what is really interesting is the increasing transfer from human health technologies to animal health. The major commercial parts of the animal health products are vaccines, followed by antiparasitics today. For antiparasitics, the source for use in animal health usually are the chemical industry, primarily focusing on crop protection. A lot of attention is also dedicated to exploring the opportunities provided by influencing the microbiome these days. But this is different in various animal species. We have to consider the different intestinal tracts of fish, bees, birds, ruminants, and monogastric animals, where we want to influence the microbiome, which is obviously quite different between these animal species.
That's fascinating, Klaus. There is a huge scope to cover with the technological advancements for human and animal medicine. Alongside the benefits of these revolutionary innovations, the financial benefits to the economy are essential, especially during these times, to create opportunities, investments, and jobs. You mentioned earlier the similarities between animal and human medicine. Can you explain the differences between how these studies are conducted in animals compared to human clinical trials?
Yes, certainly, Kissy. I will try. In principle, the requirements to obtain a marketing authorization for animals are very much the same as for humans. To a certain extent, humans are very similar to mammals, and therefore the studies to evaluate the safety and efficacy of medicines are quite similar. In animal health, with the many different species, the applicant has to run clinical trials for each indication in each of these species, making it very cost intensive. But it is the only way to assure that a product is safe in the animal species and also effective in the claimed indication. Such studies also need to be controlled, either with a placebo group or with a product of known safety and efficacy. And they need to be blinded to assure trusted results, same as in studies testing human medicines. Typically, these are managed by organizations like Klifovet on behalf of the sponsors, who are usually the owner of the patents and responsible for the complete development of the product. If Klifovet is contracted, we select the investigators, usually veterinarians known to us based on our extended network, to participate in these studies, who in return will select animal owners who may voluntarily allow their animals to participate in such studies. And again, very much the same as the consent a human will have any participation in a clinical study is very similar what a pet owner would give us for a pet study. So informed consent of the animal owner is a prerequisite to develop new products. And it's important, as we can only have more and more well-tested animal health products if animal owners grant consent. By this, the complete population of that animal species is finally benefiting of a product that is well tested for its safety and efficacy. Obviously, such studies need permits by competent authorities before starting them, especially when using non-licensed treatments. The animal drug legislation, as well as the animal welfare legislation, define the conditions. Where clinical trials are for use food-producing animals, as already indicated before, we also need to consider the consumer safety, as animal-derived products may be consumed as food at a later stage. Therefore, relevant withdrawal periods are set by the competent authorities for such cases before any product may then enter the food chain. While many people assume that any product licensed for one animal species or for humans can be used without problems in any animal species, this is often not true. While it may be obvious that an oral dose tablet cannot be given easily to fish or bees, it is less well known that there are relevant metabolic differences between species, like between cats and dogs, for example. Even a product licensed for sheep may cause different effects in goats, where we would probably anticipate that they are very similar. This is the reason why most veterinary medicines are prescription only, as there is a high risk for incorrect use and thus a risk for the animal being treated incorrectly and being harmed. To add to your question, there is one regulatory difference between human and animal health products. While in humans we have a regulation for medical devices, such products in animals often will be categorized as veterinary medicines or are non-regulated at all.
That's very interesting. There is a lot more that goes into these processes before you even reach the stage for the product to be approved. So in terms of the industry regulation, what is the difference, if any, to the regulatory approval for animal medicines in comparison to human medicines?
Oh, that's another very interesting question, Kirsty. In fact, the principles of regulations for human medicines and animal medicines are remarkably similar. While for pet products there is hardly any difference, there is a major difference when it comes to food-producing animals, as already indicated. The additional requirements come in to assure the consumer safety. The requirements for veterinary medicine are also at least as high regarding the proof of environmental safety, especially where groups of animals are intended to be treated. It is also quite similar for food and feed additives, but they are under the control of the European Food Safety Agency based in Parma, Italy. Actually, the major difference to the development of medicines for humans is the fact that we can conduct early pilot studies to de-risk the development and investment in animals, where we have, on the human side, first to do studies in various animal species to de-risk it. So how is this done? We can treat a small number of animals with an overdose to test the general safety aspects in this species, just after having some pilot batches of the product produced. And then we can treat a small number of animals with disease to get an initial impression of whether it is efficacious. Obviously, this data de-risks the approach for the investors, knowing that it is potentially safe and efficacious. So all this is done before further investment for the full development are done, resulting in the fact that at least one of two products going into full development will also reach the market in animal health, while at human health, the percentage is much lower. We can also run most studies in the target animal species and conveniently avoid the long process of testing the safety of human products in various animal species, before even daring to apply it to the first human being. For veterinary medicinal products, there will be some changes to the nitty-gritty of the requirements in the near future. A new regulation will get into force in January 2022, so in a year's time. We are still waiting for a lot of specification in the delegated and implementing acts currently being worked on by the European Commission. We hope that this will provide us more flexibility, but we also expect that there is even more data to be provided than previously anticipated. With the increasing requirements for animal welfare in Europe, it gets more and more difficult to conduct the studies mentioned above in animals in Europe, even for the species that are going to benefit from such products when the marketing authorization is obtained.
Definitely, with the new regulations and the spotlight the industry has at the moment with the pandemic, it is vital for government and other organisations to support and spread the awareness for all the trials and studies that companies like Klifovet are working on. Speaking of the pandemic, it's the biggest issue we're all facing right now, the coronavirus. How have you managed in these unprecedented times?
Well, for us veterinarians, the coronavirus pandemic is maybe not that surprising. In animals, we see epidemics and pandemics more frequently, and most of the veterinarians will remember such events in the last decades, including outbreaks of European swine fever, foot and mouth disease, blue tongue, most recently the lumpy skin disease of small ruminants, and finally the African swine fever, which always also have been in the public domain. All highly contagious diseases requiring strict hygienic measures and limitation of travel and transport for both animals and often also people. We at Klifovet have therefore incorporated strict hygiene and precaution measures last March while trying to operate under these conditions as best as possible. Until now, we have not had any infections spreading in our facilities, thanks to all our employees and partners who are particularly responsible in this regard. Also, currently, we have managed quite well to overcome the hurdles, keep business going, and even have generated various successes for our clients. However, as for anyone else, we are facing very unusual conditions as we cannot meet our clients, have to work from home where possible, and work remotely with all our partners. Usually, our daily work is shaped by traveling a lot, as we are cooperating with these business partners and clients all around the world. Studies have to be conducted under different and new requirements. We had to adapt many of our processes and cope with the unexpected. But there is a solution for everything. All of us have to rethink certain topics, and that's what we have done. But even more challenging it is for our team who have to cope with all the limitations in their daily lives at home, with homeschooling, limited kindergarten, and opportunities for social life. We try to help where we can. Therefore, it is important that people get vaccinated to be able to return to a more normal life in the near future. Again, all thanks to our great team adapting to the challenges rapidly and enthusiastically. The second and third wave, however, will certainly give us further challenges until we hope that the vaccination of the human population will allow us to return at least partly back to normal after the last year.
I know, I can't believe it's been a year already. It's certainly a new way of life, and that's why the pharmaceutical industries are key to our survival. We need to be able to preserve our ways of living, socializing, seeing our family and friends, even to go somewhere that isn't just for food shopping will be a blessing. That is when we look to the mass vaccination drive that will give us an opportunity to gradually reintegrate back into normal life. The lessons will be valuable and there will be a new way of doing things. And some areas like technology and the way we interact will be a positive advancement alongside the usual way of life.
Well, I can only agree, Kirsty.
So with technology like online meeting tools being essential and key during these times for businesses, how do you think the regulatory agencies are going to respond to online auditing?
Well, both the US FDA as the EMA have issued advice on the conduct of online auditing and inspections. Both guidance documents are valuable and we consider them when adapting our processes in spring last year. But before we go on, we must agree on a common terminology. So for me, audits are done by private organizations while competent authorities do inspections. Remote auditing therefore appears to be practiced more frequently than inspections. And a visit on the facility will also be required as soon as it will be acceptable again. We experience, however, that there are certainly some limitations for such audits because you are not present in the facilities and only observing things via a camera. That is even led by the person you audit. The review of documents is probably more intense in remote audits and inspections. However, we cannot expect inspectors to travel to hotspots and put themselves at risk. And the same is for auditors at the moment. If the facilities are new, inspectors may not find remote inspections acceptable. While it appears that audits by private organizations are done remotely, our experience with EU GMP inspectors show us that it depends on the individual case. In one instance, they were not willing to do remote inspections, even where the facility had never been inspected before. This applies, however, predominantly for GMP inspections, so for good manufacturing. For another client, this had led to significant delays in obtaining a marketing authorization, which obviously is quite annoying for them. At the same time, another client experienced a remote pharmacovigilance inspection, which worked out quite fine, and both we and the competent authorities were pleased with the outcome.
So you must use your better judgment to allow remote auditing then?
Yes, indeed, as far as this is feasible, sitting somewhere else and just having a camera and a microphone.
Definitely. There's been some speculation as to the origins of the coronavirus, with a widely perpetuated understanding that it was passed on from animals such as bats to an intermediary animal such as the pangolin, just like the SARS outbreak in 2002, from horseshoe bats to cat, like civets to humans. What is your opinion and how has it affected the way you manage clinical trials?
Well, I do not really believe that this is really that relevant that we exactly know which exact animal species was responsible. From a scientific purpose, certainly yes. However, as we have just learned last week, the WHO audit team or inspection team has now published their view after an inspection in China and basically came to the result that the Chinese told us the truth, or at least that there's no other indication to think anything else. For the history of mankind, diseases are occurring in men and animals, especially mammals, have always had zoonotic potential. That's not surprising. In fact, we have both diseases going from men to animals, but also vice versa. We know various coronaviruses that occur in animals, including pets and food-producing animals. And we have even vaccines for such diseases in animals for many years. In these COVID-19 times, whenever we conduct clinical trials, we train people and encourage them to follow the appropriate hygienic conditions. The individual health is certainly priority. And for the last year, we have done many remote monitoring and auditing of veterinary clinics. This is very time-consuming, in fact, and we look forward to be able to travel again in the near future because it's so much more efficacious. At the same time, with the increasing number of both humans and animals globally, however, the contact between the different species gets more intensive, thus increasing the risk for more microbials to adapt to other hosts and provoke new diseases like MERS, SARS, and COVID-19, being the latest.
So tell me, Klaus, what changes have you seen in the industry in the time Klifovet has been around? And what do you think it will be like going forward, for example, in the next 10 years or so?
Well, that's definitely an interesting question and a hot topic. To be honest, I'm not able to look into the future, but I guess current situation we have seen in the last couple of years will progress in the next 10 years as well. Since 1997, for instance, we saw major consolidations in the industry with ever more specialization on the one hand, while industry growth has been steady with 5 to 10% per year between the 80s and now. CROs and consultancy now play a major role and are well respected by both industry as well as the competent authorities. The size of contracted projects is steadily growing, and we are now seeing more and more full product developments outsourced even by the major players in the industry. To be honest, we are proud to be considered as having contributed to this move significantly. When I started in 1997, this was just the opposite. Few individuals believed in the success of Klifovet. Nowadays, we have been told various times that we, Klifovet, together with our clients, were able to develop new products, including new technologies, faster, cheaper, and more efficiently than what would have been feasible in-house by different major players in the industry. So we believe that this trend will be ongoing, as it has happened on the human industry side for the last 30 years as well. I'm certainly not worried about the future of outsourcing and the CROs and consulting business. So I believe that there is a bright future for Klifovet.
That's awesome. How has the work been within the industry at the moment? And with all the changes due to the pandemic, what do you think it will be like going forwards?
Well, working within the industry has ever more specialized during the last decades. Current animal health CROs are still relatively small. If you look at their size, so us, for example, having near to 50 employees. With an enormous amount of know-how, we at Klifovet are heading to be 50 employees in 2021-22, and as such, one of the leading organizations providing such services. We also observe an increasing interest by the young scientists. More and more are entering this terrain, adding valuable know-how, new technologies, and new ideas. Personally, I predict that we will see further specialization and consolidation of the service providers, although the size of the animal health market will present limitations. In general, working as a regulatory consultant and running an animal health product development organization has been extremely rewarding for me and many of my colleagues. I strongly believe that people who enjoy science, adapting to practical needs within the regulatory network will have a splendid future. The availability of animal health products for new indications of animals, also in new territories, will stay a highly interesting topic for many decades and open many options for a self-fulfilling and successful career. And this will be paralleled by a growing industry.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time today, Klaus. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today and getting a thorough overview of the animal health industry.
Has been my pleasure. Thank you, Kirsty.
Thank you. This has been Kirsty Stedman for Pharma's DNA, a pharma publications podcast in conversation with Klaus Hellmann from Klifovet, a leading CRO and regulatory consultancy in animal health product development. If you would like to know more about Klifovet, please visit the official website at klifovet.com. You can hear more episodes of Pharma's DNA on our SoundCloud account or look at our International Animal Health Journal at animalhealthmedia.com. Thanks for listening, stay safe and see you next time.